You ever seen someone walk back into the same burning house, barefoot, blistered, and swearing this time it'll be different? That's what a trauma bond looks like. It's not love. It's not loyalty. It's a psychological leash that keeps you circling pain, convinced it's passion. I've watched people sit across my desk, their hands trembling on the divorce papers, whispering through tears, "But I still love them." And I nod. Not because I agree, but because I understand. The trauma bond doesn't break just because logic says it should. It thrives on confusion. It's an addiction disguised as devotion. See, narcissists are master chemists. They know how to mix idealization with cruelty, affection with abandonment, and hope with humiliation. They give you the high of their validation, that godlike feeling when they look at you and say you're the only one who gets me. And then, when they pull it away, your entire nervous system panics. It's not just heartbreak, it's withdrawal. So you chase the fix. You rationalize the insults. You call it working through a rough patch. You start believing that if you could just love them better, softer, longer, they'll return to that person they were in the beginning. The one who made you feel seen, chosen, electrified. But that person was a mask, a lure. The real one is the withdrawal, the control, the chaos that follows. I once had a client, let's call her Maya, who couldn't stop going back to her ex-husband. He'd scream at her one night, then send flowers the next morning. He'd cheat, then cry, swear he'd change, and for a few weeks he'd play the part of a perfect husband. Maya thought those good moments meant progress. They didn't. They were breadcrumbs, just enough sweetness to keep her starving. That's the thing about trauma bonds. They trap you in a loop. Every time you try to leave, your body screams for the very person who broke you. The brain confuses danger with safety because it's been trained to survive chaos, not peace. Breaking that bond doesn't start with walking away. It starts with understanding why you stayed. It starts when you realize you weren't weak. You were conditioned. You were trained to associate pain with love. That's not romance. That's survival. When I tell clients this, they often go quiet. You can almost see the light flicker behind their eyes. The moment they realize the problem wasn't their lack of love, it was their excess of tolerance. And that's when real healing begins. Because once you name the bond, once you see it for what it is, the illusion starts to crack. You stop waiting for their apology. You stop needing their closure. You start understanding that freedom isn't about forgetting them. It's about remembering yourself. You ever wonder why it feels like love, even when it's killing you? That's the cruel brilliance of a trauma bond. It mimics love so well that even the sharp edges feel familiar, even comforting. You tell yourself, if it hurts this much, it must mean something. But what it really means is that your nervous system has been hijacked. See, real love brings peace. It grounds you. It's predictable, calm, nourishing. A trauma bond, though, it's chaos with lipstick on. It feels intense, dramatic, intoxicating. That's because your body's chemistry is working against you. When the narcissist showers you with affection, your brain releases dopamine, the reward chemical. You feel high. When they devalue or discard you, your cortisol spikes, the stress hormone. You feel panic, and when they come back, that mix of relief and longing floods your system with oxytocin, the same chemical that bonds a mother to her child. It's biology, not fate. I once said to a client, "You're not in love, you're in withdrawal." And she looked at me like I just told her the sky was red. But then she paused. She realized she wasn't craving the person. She was craving the feeling that person once gave her. That rush, that validation, that sense of being enough for a few fleeting moments. Narcissists know this. They count on it. They build a rhythm. Praise, punishment, apology, repeat. It's like a metronome for emotional dependency. Every high becomes a promise, every low becomes a test, and the whole relationship turns into a cycle of hope and despair. That's how they keep control. Not by locking you in a room, but by locking you inside your own need for their approval. You see, the narcissist doesn't love you the way you love them. They use love the way a fisherman uses bait. Every compliment, every kiss, every "I can't live without you." It's strategic. It's about supply, not connection. The moment they sense you're slipping, they'll resurrect the charm, mirror your emotions, whisper what you need to hear. It's not because they've changed, it's because they're losing control. And that's the trap. The moment you start to detach, they sense it. They'll send that late-night text, post that cryptic quote online, or suddenly miss you. You'll feel your stomach drop, your heart race, and before you know it, you're right back in the loop. That's not love pulling you back. That's trauma doing its job. The hardest part of breaking free isn't walking away. It's staying gone once the withdrawal sets in. That's when your mind plays tricks on you, rewriting the story, softening the edges, romanticizing the chaos. But you have to remember, you're not losing love. You're detoxing from manipulation. And detox hurts. It's messy. You'll miss the person you thought they were. But that version never really existed. It was a mask, crafted to keep you hooked. Here's the truth nobody likes to hear. Breaking a trauma bond feels worse before it feels better. It's not a clean break, it's a detox. You're coming off an emotional drug that once made you feel alive, even as it was slowly destroying you. When you first leave, the silence is deafening. Your phone doesn't buzz. No drama, no tension, no adrenaline, just quiet. And in that quiet, the cravings start. You'll remember their laughter, their apologies, those rare nights when they were gentle. And your brain will twist that into proof that maybe they weren't all bad. That's withdrawal talking. The same way an addict convinces themselves they can have just one more hit. I tell my clients all the time, your healing begins the moment you stop negotiating with your pain. Don't rationalize their behavior. Don't send that text. Don't scroll their page looking for clues of regret. Every time you engage, you reopen the wound. Narcissists thrive on re-entry. They don't need love from you. They need access. See, the trauma bond isn't about the narcissist's power. It's about your body's conditioning. You've been trained to see chaos as connection. And now, you're retraining your nervous system to find peace and calm. That takes time. It takes unlearning. And it takes brutal honesty. One woman I worked with, let's call her Tasha, finally left after 10 years of emotional warfare. The first few months, she said, were unbearable. I'd wake up reaching for my phone, she told me. I missed the noise, even the arguments. I felt empty. That emptiness wasn't loneliness. It was withdrawal from constant adrenaline. She wasn't missing him. She was missing the intensity. Healing that starts with structure, routine. You reclaim your mornings. You reclaim your meals. You start doing small things that remind your body it's safe now. A walk, a journal, a full night's sleep without checking your phone at 2 a.m. It sounds small, but it's radical. Because every act of calm is an act of rebellion against the chaos you were trained to crave. Then comes the rebuilding. You start examining the deeper wound. Not just what they did to you, but why you accepted it. That's where the real work lies. Maybe you grew up equating love with anxiety. Maybe you learned early that peace was boring. Once you name that, you start breaking the pattern, not just with your ex, but with every relationship that mirrors that cycle. And here's the thing. Healing doesn't mean you'll stop remembering. It means those memories will stop controlling you. The day will come when you think of them, and your body won't tense up. No spike of adrenaline, no ache in your chest, just recognition and release. Because healing isn't about hating them. It's about loving yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who was never going to stop cutting. Let's talk about what comes after the wreckage. When the dust settles, the narcissist is gone, and you're standing there wondering who you even are without the chaos. That's the part nobody warns you about. Freedom doesn't feel like fireworks at first. It feels empty, foreign, like walking out of a loud room into silence and realizing your ears are still ringing. See, when you've been conditioned to chase love through pain, peace feels suspicious. You'll catch yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop. You'll meet kind people and think, why does this feel dull? That's not boredom. That's your nervous system adjusting to normal. Real love doesn't spike your adrenaline, it steadies it. And that steadiness can feel almost unnatural at first. This is the phase where you learn the difference between attention and affection, between possession and partnership. The narcissist trained you to confuse the two. Their intensity wasn't intimacy. It was control wrapped in flattery. Real love, on the other hand, doesn't need to prove itself every 5 minutes. It doesn't demand you shrink to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. It lets you breathe. I once told a client, you don't miss the narcissist. You miss who you were trying to be with them. And that truth hit hard, because after you leave, the hardest thing to reclaim isn't your home, your finances, or your peace. It's your identity. You've spent so long managing someone else's moods, you forgot your own preferences, your own voice. So you start slow. You rebuild your sense of self like a house, one brick at a time. You ask small questions. What do I like to eat when no one's judging? What kind of silence soothes me? What does safety feel like in my body? You start answering those without fear of ridicule, without needing permission. That's self-love in its purest form. Not the spa day cliché, but the daily act of choosing yourself. Boundaries come next. They're not walls, they're filters. You stop explaining why no is a full sentence. You stop mistaking guilt for empathy. You stop entertaining chaos just because it's familiar. That's how you rebuild trust, not in other people, but in your own judgment. Because once you trust yourself to walk away from red flags, you stop attracting them. I've seen it happen. The day a client smiles and says, I didn't text back. That's not indifference. That's healing. That's self-respect. The moment you stop craving validation from the person who broke you, you reclaim your power. And here's the beautiful irony. Once you're no longer desperate for love, you become magnetic to real love. The kind that doesn't play games or feed off your pain. Because the end of a trauma bond isn't just escape, it's rebirth. You don't walk away as the same person who crawled through the fire. You walk out forged, clear-eyed, and unrecognizable to the version of you that once mistook pain for passion. Here's the thing about surviving a trauma bond. Once you've been burned like that, you start seeing fire everywhere. But not all warmth is danger. The trick is learning the difference between the glow of genuine affection and the heat of manipulation. And that starts with recognizing the red flags you ignored the first time. See, trauma bonds don't form overnight. They're built in stages, subtle, seductive, almost invisible. That's why the next time around, your biggest weapon isn't fear, it's awareness. You start to notice patterns. The too fast intimacy, the love bombing, the charm that feels a little too curated, the compliments that sound like rehearsed lines. You stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. Because real connection doesn't need a performance, it unfolds. Let me tell you what I've learned sitting across from hundreds of people who've walked through the same fire. Narcissists always reveal themselves. Always. It's in the way they handle the word no. It's in how they react to your boundaries. Early on, they'll test you. Subtly. Maybe they mock a sensitivity, or dismiss a concern, or push you to share before you're ready. You'll feel that faint twinge in your gut, that internal whisper that says, something's off. That's your cue. Listen to it this time. Because the truth is, your body knew before your mind caught up. Every time you rationalized that knot in your stomach, every time you told yourself you were overreacting, that was the old version of you trying to survive. But the healed version of you learns to stop explaining discomfort away. You start honoring it. Another red flag? Intensity over consistency. The narcissist comes in fast, flooding you with attention, affection, and promises that sound like poetry. They mirror your dreams, your values, your wounds, but pay attention to the gaps, The small moments when the mask slips. Their empathy feels rehearsed. Their apologies lack depth. Their affection feels transactional. Healthy love is slower. It doesn't rush your trust, it earns it. It doesn't demand closeness, it allows it. It doesn't make you question your worth, it affirms it quietly, steadily, without spectacle. One of my clients once said, "I don't want to be paranoid, but I don't want to be fooled again." And I told her, "You're not paranoid, you're informed." Awareness isn't bitterness, it's protection. It's knowing you can spot manipulation from across the room and choosing not to dance with it this time. The best safeguard against another trauma bond is to stay connected to yourself. When you're grounded in your own peace, no one can sell you chaos as love. You stop chasing the high and start seeking the calm. And when someone new walks into your life, you won't need them to complete you. You'll choose them from wholeness, not hunger. Because the ultimate lesson of the trauma bond isn't just about who hurt you. It's about who you became when you healed. You learn that love isn't supposed to break you. It's supposed to meet you where you've already put yourself back together. Healing doesn't make you invincible. It makes you aware. You don't suddenly stop attracting broken people. You just stop entertaining them. The difference is in your response. You used to chase the spark. Now you pay attention to the burn. But there's a deeper layer to this recovery. One that most survivors don't talk about. It's the grief that comes after the freedom. Because even when you know the relationship was toxic, you still mourn the illusion. You miss the person they pretended to be. You grieve the version of yourself that believed in them. That grief is heavy, not because you want them back, but because you finally understand how much of yourself you gave away trying to keep them. And here's the thing, closure won't come from them. Narcissists don't give closure, they give confusion. They'll rewrite history, twist the story, or play victim to make you doubt your own reality. So stop waiting for them to acknowledge your pain. Their silence is your answer. Their indifference is your closure. When clients sit across from me and ask, "How do I stop thinking about them?" I tell them, you don't fight the thought, you replace it. You redirect it towards something that grows you instead of shrinking you. You take that obsessive energy and invest it in rebuilding your life. Because the best revenge on a narcissist isn't hate, it's indifference. It's thriving in a life where their name holds no weight. This next stage of healing is where you rediscover power, the kind that doesn't need to roar, the kind that lives in boundaries, in clarity, in peace. You stop apologizing for being difficult, for having needs, for wanting respect. You stop auditioning for love. You realize that the person who once made you feel too much only said that because they were too small. And one day, almost without noticing, you wake up and realize you've stopped checking their page. You no longer rehearse what you'd say if you ran into them. Their memory becomes distant, like an old photograph you forgot to throw away. That's when you know the bond is gone. But here's the twist. Healing doesn't mean the story disappears. It becomes part of your armor. You start recognizing people by their patterns, not their promises. You stop romanticizing red flags. You start walking with a kind of quiet strength that makes manipulators uncomfortable, because they can't control someone who's already faced their own darkness and survived it. And maybe, years from now, when you tell your story, you'll realize the trauma bond wasn't just a curse. It was a teacher. It showed you what love is not, so you could finally understand what love should be. Because in the end, the goal isn't to harden, it's to heal without hate, to love again, not recklessly, but wisely, and to never mistake emotional chaos for connection ever again. Here's the truth, raw and unpolished. You don't walk away from a trauma bond as the same person who entered it. Something in you shifts, permanently. You learn to see the world through clearer eyes, to feel through scar tissue that still remembers the burn. But you also carry a quiet wisdom, the kind that only pain can teach. Surviving a trauma bond isn't just about leaving the narcissist. It's about reclaiming the parts of you they tried to convince you were unlovable. It's about realizing that your sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was empathy. Your loyalty wasn't foolish, it was faith. Your love wasn't misplaced, it was misused. And that distinction is what finally sets you free. When you look back, you start to understand how deep that conditioning went. The late-night apologies you never received, the endless self-doubt, the way you learned to measure your worth by someone else's moods. But slowly, those memories lose their sting. They become reminders, not open wounds. Lessons, not losses. You see, healing isn't about vengeance or proving a point. It's about peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. The kind that lets you walk away quietly, without explanation, without bitterness. Because you finally learned that your silence has more power than their chaos ever did. And one day, you'll meet someone new. Or maybe you won't. And that'll be okay too. Because this time, love won't feel like drowning. It'll feel like breathing. You'll recognize it not by the butterflies, but by the calm. It won't demand you shrink, chase, or prove. It'll meet you where you stand, whole, self-assured, and unshakable. That's the afterlife of a trauma bond, the rebirth. The point where you stop chasing closure and start creating it. The point where what they did to me turns into what I learned about myself. You start understanding that the story wasn't about your destruction. It was about your reconstruction. I've seen survivors walk into my office broken, convinced they'll never trust again, and walk out months later with a quiet smile that says, "I made it." That's the thing about healing. It's rarely loud. It's not a dramatic breakthrough. It's subtle. It's the morning you wake up and realize you didn't think about them. It's the conversation you no longer need to have. It's peace where pain used to live. So here's your truth. You didn't lose love when you left. You found it, buried under the rubble of everything they took. And now it's yours again. The trauma bond may have marked you, but it didn't define you. You outgrew it. You outlasted it. And the person you've become, grounded, clear, untouchable, is the proof that you were never weak. You were just learning what strength really looks like. Because healing, real healing, isn't the end of your story. It's the start of your freedom.